Welcome back to a video on this channel, and today we are going to fix a TV. It's a Samsung 50-inch 4K TV right here. So I'm going to flip you around and let's see what model number it is. At the moment, the symptoms are it won't turn on. The TV in question is plugged up and against the wall. So the model number is QE50 Q60 TAU model. And this is actually quite prevalent for panel issues. I believe that it's a fault within the TV screen itself that's preventing it from turning on. So I'm going to spin this around and then we'll turn it on at the wall and see what it's doing at the moment. With the TV flipped around, I'm going to turn it on against the wall and we'll see what's happening. So it's on there and you can see the screen has lit up, but it immediately turns off. The standby light for the TV is on the bottom in the middle of this TV, but it's on its side. So just look out for it flashing red. There we go. So it's trying to turn on, the screen will light up, stays black, and it shuts down again, and it goes back to standby. So we're kind of in a standby boot loop. So now we've seen the issue, I'll explain what's kind of going on in a diagram, and then we'll jump right in and remove the back of the TV and try and fix this. To provide electricity to your TV, you plug it into the mains with a 3-pin socket. When you do this, electricity goes to the power supply unit, the PSU. And from this PSU, it then gets sent to turn on the lights of the TV. It's backlit with LED strips. So here's a line showing from the power supply unit to a light bulb to indicate the LEDs of the TV. This is the brains that does all the calculations, processes your images, and basically controls the entire TV. It receives power from the PSU. On this main board, there are clock lines. So the main issue with this particular TV is I think it's a clash of signal in the clock lines, because it can be kind of fixed by blocking off some of the signals on these clock lines by using tape covering the flex cables between the main board and the screen. So between the main board and this screen that I'm drawing now, there are also clock lines on the screen. They're connected with a ribbon cable, and I can't remember exactly how many clock lines there are. Definitely more than 4, but along one of these, there might be an issue in the screen for one of the clock lines, and it tells the main board that it's not working properly, and therefore it enters a boot loop cycle. So what we've got to try and do is identify which of these clock lines is faulty, block it off with a piece of tape so it stops the signal being sent back to the main board, and hopefully the TV will turn back on and you can watch TV as normal. So we've turned off against the wall now, and let's remove the back off the TV. So to get started, we're going to have to rotate the TV back around the other way so we can access the back. Be gentle and careful so you don't crack the screen in any way. And we'll then unplug the power cable. For this particular TV, there are no screws on the back. It's all held on with clips. So in order to access and remove the back cover, you can stick a screwdriver on the base. There's a little hole here, which can be used with a flathead screwdriver, and then you can pry it open. Grab a flathead screwdriver and stick it in. So we've fully separated this back shell now, and we can just pull it off. Just like that. So we'll put this shell to the side, keep it for later when we reinstall it. This is the power cord. So we get power from the socket and it gets plugged into here, which is the PSU, the power supply unit. Power supply unit feeds energy into the LED strips via this port here, and the LEDs are on the other side of this metal panel. At the same time, power is fed to the main board with this cable here. And this does all the processing of images, your apps, applications, processing your HDMI imports. And to display the image to the screen, it sends information along this LVDS, low voltage differential signal cable, to the panel, which has its own little board to process the information. And on this particular TV, quite often it's something wrong with the clock pins on the ribbon cable. So this LVDS cable goes to this top board of the panel, but there's another board down here, and they're linked with this little orange one here. So what we've got to do now to get more access is remove the speakers, and then we'll inspect these ribbon cables to see where the clock signal pins are, and then we will work accordingly to identify which clock signals are bad. Okay, so you're at the perfect height to see me remove the speakers now. As you can see, there's a cable from here connected to the main board. So we'll undo that clip first. Just like that. And then the speakers are just held in with these blue grommets. So we should just be able to give them a wiggle and they will come out. Or a little tug. There we go. You can see that this is in the way. So we might be able to, I can slip the speaker through this gap. So we can leave this cable in there and then remove the other speaker. So now we'll just place this on the side, away. What I've done now is zoomed you in right to where there's a bridge connector between the top and the bottom of the panel that receives information from the LVDS cable and sends it to the TV screen. What we want to do is identify where the clock signals are. And we should then hopefully be able to see where the clock pins are. So an indication of the clock pins are these pins here. Those would be some clock pins. So what we're going to try and do is tape off some of them and see if it turns on. What we've done now is we have left this top side connected and this part of the screen where there's potentially a fault disconnected. So let's plug in the power to the TV and turn it on. And if there's display on the screen, then that means the issue is on this bottom half of the screen. So we've got a power cable here, plugged in against the wall. Plug it into the TV first before we turn on the socket power. So it's plugged in there and we'll turn it on against the wall. You can see the lights have turned on and it looks like it has stayed on now. So the TV has stayed on, which means that the issue should be on that side of the TV, but the issue is on one of the clock signals. So we've got to identify which one it is by playing around, taping off certain segments of the clock signals. I'll catch you in a second. I'm going to go grab some tape and we will try it out. Okay, so we've identified that the clock signals are here, this bunch of pins, and this is how the connection ribbon sits. So that means we need to tape off roughly this top section and try to cover some of these pins here. So I'll put you on the bench and we'll work on covering these pins. This is a good view now to show you what I'm doing and how I'm working on this ribbon cable. So we saw that there were clock signals and you can see where they reside along these clock pins here, which connects the top and bottom bit of the panel with here. So what we want to do is cover one or two pins at a time here, and then see if when we reinstall this, if we get image back to the TV. So to do this, we'll just be covering up some of the pins with some tape. So here's just a bit of tape, and we want to fold over so what we're just doing is fold over a bit so we have a tab, but this is way too long. So what we're going to do is just get some scissors, trim off a lot of the excess, roughly cut there. But this is also way too long and will cover all of the pins. So we're just going to cut off what we need, or try what we need. So if I just grab it off, what we have is just a little bit of tape. I appreciate that's quite hard to see. So here is a bit of tape and we just want to cover up some pins. So I'll try covering this many to begin with. Okay, Okay, so off screen I've just aligned it a little bit better. So I can show you now that I've only covered a few pins across here. I've covered about maybe half of them, which could be too many, but if we can quickly get an image on the screen, then we know that the issue is amongst these pins more to the right side, and then we can gradually reduce the thickness of this tape and cover fewer clock signals. So I'm going to reinstall this back on the TV and see if it turns on. So we're back at the TV now, and we're going to reinstall our modified piece of ribbon cable, ensuring that when we put it in, we fold back this bit of tape and then place it in here. There we go. So let's try turning on the TV like this. I'm not sure how well this will pick up on camera, but now what I've done is I've reduced the thickness of the tape even more to only cover 2 pins. You can just about see it covering these 2 pins here. So we'll try that next. Okay, so I've kind of got it working now. I've spent over an hour trying to cover different parts of the ribbon cable, covering the different pins. And this is the best that I can get it, but I think the panel is too far gone. As you can see, there's a black line that runs down the middle of the TV, and also everything on the lower side, which we did identify before is the faulty side, shows a lot more cables. However, it's in a watchable state, but it's not brilliant. So unfortunately, this isn't a full repair, but yes, this is where we'll leave it for this video.